Hey, and welcome back to day 5, the last day of Learn to Watercolor series. Today we're going to learn how to paint wildflowers. So for this one, I recommend pulling up a photo of some wildflowers. So I'm going to show you how to paint a pink coneflower, a little yellow black-eyed Susan, and even a butterfly to go along with that. So let's first start out by I like to use the medium size number 6 round paintbrush, but whatever you have, don't use something too large that you can't control. First, you're going to get your brush nice and wet, and we're going to do the coneflower. So for the coneflower, let's start with the center of the flower. And a lot of the times that is a more yellowish, orangish brown center. So right now I have a lot of yellow and brown on my paintbrush. So let's just get down the very lightest layer of the center of the coneflower. So it's kind of a more rounded up center. It doesn't lay into the flower. So something like that will be a nice start for our coneflower. While it's still wet, I'm going to drop it in a little bit more of that brown. Orange will be really helpful for the coneflower again too. And then adding some towards the top, but now it's good to let that dry before I go and add some more dimension. I'm kind of taking away paint. It got a little heavy with paint and water, so you just take a nice dry brush. After wiping it on your paper towel, a dry brush, swipe it through the wet area and you can pick up paint. All right, so let's do the petals. So the petals, again, will work in a lighter color. If you have a red, use mostly water, a little bit of paint. Anything like if you could mix a red and a purple, that'll give you more of that, that same coneflower is more of that purpley pink. So what I'm going to do is, with one swipe, apply a lot of pressure and then lift my brush up. We'll create one petal that will go through and add more dimension later, but let's get the first layers down again. So I'm starting at the center of the flower, touching where that brown is. I'm starting to apply a lot of pressure, and then I'm slowly applying less pressure and picking up my paintbrush as I work my way out. We're going to do that for all the petals. And that's why the round brush is so helpful and versatile to have in your paint set, just because you can do so much with it. So applying little pressure means that I'm picking my brush up and kind of drawing with it at the end on the point. Now we need a few more. The longest petals are going to be the ones closest to you. I can tell that we're going to need to fill this in more. And then so it looks three-dimensional, you want to add some towards the back. All right, so let's leave that for now. We will go back and shape that. Now that our center is mostly dry, I'm going to take my liner brush and pick up some of the darker brown. If you need a darker brown, I would add some purple to your brown If you don't have a brown, take your purple, add red, and add green. That'll get more of that muddy color that you want. So I'm going to draw on it on the base of the coneflower. And this is going to be kind of like on our cactus, the little wispies or thorns to create that texture. You want to make sure that you leave some of the base of the center of the flower shining through. And then make sure it overlaps in areas. I'm even going to add some more brighter color of an orange towards the top. Drop that in there. Okay, so we'll let that dry. And now that our petals are dry, I'm going to start adding more dimension to those. So I'm going to stick with this liner brush, and I'm going to pick up more paint and water, kind of in that medium range for our pinks. And this is going to start to give the petals more dimension. So the outer areas of the petals are going to have more of that outline, darker, and it's also going to have one down the center of the petal if you take a look at it online, of a picture of a coneflower. So we'll just, now we're layering, so now we'll just drag it all the way to the edge and start adding dimension to our coneflower. Going to take my medium-sized brush back again. I want to add a really thin layer of blue on some of these petals. It looks too flat right now, all the same colors. So again, I'm going to take a really light swash of the blue. And to know how much paint you have on your brush, I always like to dab it first onto my paper towel and get that off. So I did get quite a bit off. I can pick up a little more. All right, so now I will show you how to do the stem. Back to my medium-sized round brush. I love sap green, but any green you have, go ahead and get it a lot of paint on your brush. We're going to start to do the first layer of the stem. So my stem is going to be like how it's kind of curving up like that. So careful not to paint over the petals. We're going to bring the stem down. I'm even going to take some of that away. While this is still wet, I'm going to drop in a little more color to give it more dimension. A little bit darker green. And then I'm going to run that darker green down one side of the stem. Okay, so for the leaves of the coneflower, now they are going to be kind of longer leaves that are going to work off the stem. Go ahead and get your brush nice and loaded with green paint. The trick with leaves are to start more at the point in light pressure, because that's where the leaf kind of comes to a point of where it connects to the stem. So you want to start light and then apply more pressure as it works its way out. And now I'm curving my leaf and applying less pressure. We're gonna finish that leaf. I'm gonna add a little more yellow to my green to give it some more dimension. So again, light, thick, and a lot of pressure, and meeting that same point, thin again. And we can go through and add more and clean it up, even drop in some more color. But that's all you really need to do for a leaf. So we'll add one on the other side. Again, thin point, thick, and then lift it up and you get a point. You might have to just kind of work it out a little bit. All right, now we'll do the other side of our leaf. Like that looks pretty good, but I just want to make it a little bit of a thicker leaf. So I'm going to start at this side now, because naturally my hand can move left to right easier. So start here, thick, down to thin. So like I said, you might want to go through now and start adding some of those veins of the leaves. The liner brush will work great for that, because I have a good point on my current brush. I can just work it in. I like how it's wet on wet right now. And I still think that we need more dimension in our stem. So I'll grab some darker green, and now that it's dried, I'll be able to add that on really easily. And then pull that all the way down on one edge. Like that. All right, so the Black-Eyed Susan, again, this flower has kind of a raised center like the coneflower did. It's very dark. A little fun fact about black, don't like using black in any of my paintings. It's just such a stark, predominant color. So to create a really dark, richer color that I think looks prettier in paintings is using like browns and purples that you can layer that will make it look almost black. But black is great if you're doing like brush lettering and doing a quote, but I don't like to use it like on any of my dog portraits. So I'm going to do similar to how we did the coneflower over there. Did one really dark layer of brown to begin. We'll go back to that. So our petals of our Black-Eyed Susan. The yellow ochre color is the one that I'm going to use mostly, but any type of yellow that you have will work in lighter layers again, of applying thick and thin pressure. These are smaller petals, they're a smaller flower. So that yellow went pretty far. Now I just picked up more water and I'm still working with that same amount of paint. So that's definitely going to need some more dimension. I recommend using more of a golden color to add the dimension. So yellow and red would kind of create that more gold color. And then like we did with the coneflower, you're going to do a little bit of drawing on the edges. All right, so now to make the center even darker, like I said, adding a purple or a blue makes that color a lot richer and darker. So I just have a true purple on my brush and I'm going to layer it on there and see how dark that is. But then you'll also get a little bit of that purple hue to it and it makes it a really pretty unexpected color. Starting to work its way out my petals, and I think I will pull some of that purple out to give more of that shadow on an edge of a petal. Okay, so again, the stem is very similar, but I'm going to use a little more brown in the stem. Just do one nice swoop down. These will cross. While it's still wet, I'm going to add in a little more green to the stem with my liner brush. Now let's give this one a little bit more of a stem. It's not so connected, so I'll go ahead and draw a little stem out, and that's where we'll paint the same type of technique of thick to thin. We can do that on the other side. And then we'll want to add in more dimension into our stem. Let's do a blue butterfly. I suggest either tracing or, again, just kind of wing it. Look up a picture and follow the shape. I like to draw the outer edge of the butterfly first. So here goes, and you can do it real light like this. So here's one wing, the bottom wing. Here's the middle. And now the other side. So now that we've kind of done a loose sketch with our watercolor of the butterfly, this one's going to be a lot of fun. Think back to our original painting of the moons. We'll do a nice light wash and then we'll drop in on a wet on wet technique in the butterfly to give it more of its fun, colorful patterns. So make sure you do have some good light areas left open. But you just want to make sure you get your butterfly all nice and wet like that. And then you can go ahead and start dropping in some other colors, some darker blues, like on the outer edge. And you won't be able to create the dimension of the wing quite yet until we're dried. Your painting's more dry, and then you can go back and layer it on. So work on mostly the pattern that you want in your butterfly. I'm going to use even some darker color, blue. Do that as like a polka dotted pattern. But I'm loving the veining technique that this wet on wet is creating. So we'll do the other side of the butterfly. And then try and mimic similar to the other side. So it's a symmetrical butterfly. And those dark. All right, and then I have to be patient and let this dry before we can go through and add the center of the butterfly, but then we're almost done. Okay, so now that our butterfly is mostly dry, we're going to add the center of our butterfly's body. And you can add this part before it's even fully dry because it's fun to see it kind of expand into the butterfly. So I have a really dark blue with a lot of paint and water on my brush. And I'm just going to start forming kind of what that body looks like. And there's not much to this part. You really just need to draw it on there. You want to make sure that you create the little head. And then we'll wait until I pick up my other liner brush to do the antennas. I still want to add more dimension to the body. And then I think I also want to start adding a little more dimension to the wing. Just in these innermost areas, and not too much. Can add some out here. Might even want to add some on the very edge. All right, so then last but not least, the antennas. So I'm using my little liner brush, just like a pencil pretty much, and getting a lot of dark paint on my brush, and then you're just going to real light pressure pull out, then adding a little bit of a bead round head to it. But you have to be really careful not to push too hard in general. So go ahead if you want to shape up some other areas, but that pretty much does it. So that is your fun, bright, colorful floral wildflower painting, and I hope it brought you guys as much joy as it did for me to share it with you. This really is the end of this series, but it's hopefully the beginning of all your love for watercolor, and I would love for you to share this progress with me and stay in touch. Share with Watercolor for Wellness and join my Facebook group, Watercolor for Wellness. And I can't wait to meet you guys and keep up with your progress. So thanks so much for joining me. Chat soon.